Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Penn Vicarage. I see sunshine pouring through the window this morning, a nice blue sky. Hope you are well. Great to see you this morning, and welcome to our Bible talk for this morning. And please may I remind you, and if you can, feel free to share these messages with your friends so that people can enjoy them to your way of spreading the gospel and spreading the good news of Jesus to your friends and family. So we are, as you know, working our way through the letter of Paul, I should say, to the Romans, and we're in chapter 3. It's quite complex, so I'll go straight through it, but here we go. Romans chapter 3, and I'm reading verses 1 to 20. Complex, but brilliant. Bear with me on this one. Romans 3, verses 1 to 20. Here goes. Paul writes, "Then what advantage has the Jew, or what is the value of circumcision? Much in every way. For in the first place, the Jews were entrusted with the oracles of God. What if some were unfaithful? Will their faithlessness nullify the faithfulness of God? By no means. Although everyone is a liar, let God be proved true, as it is written, so that you may be justified in your words and prevail in your judging. But if our injustice serves to confirm the justice of God, what should we say? That God is unjust to inflict wrath on us? I speak in a human way. By no means. For then how could God judge the world? But if through my falsehood God's truthfulness abounds to his glory, why am I still being condemned as a sinner? And why not say, as some slander us by saying that we say, let us do evil so that good may come? Their condemnation is deserved. What then? Are we any better off? No, not at all. For we already charge that all, both Jews and Greeks, are under the power of sin, as it is written, there is no one who is righteous, not even one. There is no one who has understanding, there's no one who seeks God. All have turned aside, together they've become worthless. There is no one who shows kindness, there's not even one. Their throats are open graves, and they use their tongues to deceive. The venom of vipers is under their lips. Their mouths are full of cursing and bitterness. Their feet are swift to shed blood. Ruin and misery are in their paths, and the way of peace they have not known. There is no fear of God before their eyes. Now we know that whatever the law says, it speaks to those who are under the law, so that every mouth may be silenced, and the whole world may be held accountable to God. For no human being will be justified in his sight by deeds prescribed by the law, for through the law comes the knowledge of sin." And this is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. I became a Christian when I was 14, which means I've been a Christian for 41 years. And as you can imagine, over the last 41 years, my ideas have changed. I pray differently to what I did all those years ago. My ideas about God have changed. My faith has changed. As I say, my ideas about the church have changed. I've changed. God hasn't. But as you can imagine, my ideas have changed in the last 40 years. That's with life and experience and everything else. And with spirit in me, as you can imagine, my life and my ideas have changed. You might say, as the lovely poster that used to say, be patient, God hasn't finished with me yet. I like to think I'm going in the right direction. I like to think I'm a work in progress rather than a work in regress. That was clever, that one. Thanks to C.S. Lewis. But nonetheless, as you can imagine, my ideas, as all of us, our ideas change with time and experience and so on. And I believe this is also very, very much true in the case of Paul. You've got to remember, Paul had been, for most of his life, a fanatical Jew. He was brought up in a Jewish family, versed in the Jewish scriptures, and he was passionate and absolutely switched on for his Jewish faith. And he was very, very annoyed by, as you can imagine, by the rise of the Jesus movement, and he saw it as a terrible thing. And part of his fanaticism, you might say, was to persecute the new Jesus movement. And then one day, horror of horrors, the last thing he expected to happen happened. And he's on his way to Damascus to try and persecute some more Christians, and he meets the risen Jesus. And you might say then, they had to kind of get used to that then, because the rest of this day is history. Because despite what he may have thought before, he's now met the risen Jesus, and he's got to deal with that. And I think he spent the rest of his life working that through. Just what did it mean that Jesus is alive? And I think, as you can imagine, like all of us, he had to do a complete change in the way he thought about things. And his ideas changed through the years. And in our reading this morning, the big debate he's trying to work out is, what of his former life? What of Judaism? What of his Jewishness? What does it mean? And the question he asks this morning is being Jewish any help or not? And he weighs the two in his mind. On the one hand, you see, he says, and this is what he's trying to say, he's a work in progress, he's trying to work it through. And on the one hand, he says, being Jewish has one great advantage. It means that we have the scriptures, what he calls the oracles of God. And which means that one great advantage, it means they have the teachings of God, they have the history of God, they have the of the people with God, they have the Psalms and the scriptures. They've got the writings, the oracles, the scriptures of God, and that's one great advantage that they have. Now, it is also true to say that if you read the history of the people of God in 1-2 Samuel, 1-2 Kings, 1-2 Chronicles and so on, it's not a happy time. And often it's a story of, as a tissue of unfaithfulness, and a story of how often the people of God don't rely on him, do their own thing and get into trouble. That is true, but that doesn't nullify the fact that God's truth is there. And they have the advantage. They can listen to the scriptures. They've got the word of God. And even though the people of God often in the past did not do what God said, it doesn't take away from the fact they've got the wonderful scriptures. And the same is true for us today. We have the Bible, we have the scriptures. And even though the church and we, and lots of people get it wrong often, it doesn't take away from the fact that we have the Bible, that we have the wonderful word of God. And that is one great advantage to the Jews and one great advantage to us too. So on the one hand, being Jewish has one great advantage, that they have the scriptures, the oracles of God. And as they did, we do, and we can enjoy the scriptures too. So on the one hand, Paul is saying, he's trying to work this out, as I say, being Jewish has one great advantage, that they have the Bible, which is brilliant. On the other hand, they have no advantage at all, because on the other hand, Jewish or not, Bible or not, we are all fellow human beings. And because of that, we are all subject to the same temptations, frustrations, desires, you name it, and I'm sure we're all too familiar with them inside ourselves. And with or without the Bible, with or without circumcision, with or without whatever, we are all part of a human condition. We all are all sinners, and we all subject to the same temptations prescribed, what you might call the sinful nature that everybody else is. What the Bible does tell us and reminds us, one big advantage is that it does remind us that actually we can't do it on our own. And that because we are subject to these temptations and frustrations, none of us can achieve this righteousness on our own. We all need something more. And whether we're Jewish or not, whatever we may be, whatever our experience may be, we all cannot do it on our own. We all need something. In other words, we all need Jesus. So Paul is, as I say, is a work in progress. He's trying to work out his faith, and he does it as he goes through life, like we all do. And he's looking back on his former Judaism and he's saying, is it advantage to be Jewish or not? On the one hand, he says, absolutely it is, because they've got the Bible, because they've got the oracles of God. And even though the people of God foul up many, many times in the past, and even though the people of God foul up many, many times today, it doesn't take away from the fact that they, like us, we have the fantastic and amazing word of God, and that is brilliant, and that is one great advantage. But the other thing, on the other hand, being Jewish has no advantage, because we are all part of the same human condition. We are all sinners. We are all subject, as I say, to the same temptations, frustrations, desires, and all the sinful nature, you might say, that we are all too aware of. And because of that, all of us, whoever we may be, however old or young, whatever we may be, we all need something more. We all need a bit of extra help. We all need Jesus. We all need the grace of God. Whoever we may be, however long we've been in the faith, however much we may know, whatever our background may or may not be, all of us, my friends, need Jesus. We all need the grace of God. And more on that in the next few days. Hope that makes sense. God bless you, and may you enjoy and bathe in the love